See, some people, they have a wrong idea that they want to lose weight, they avoid glucose, they start consuming fat, or they avoid fat, they start consuming glucose. Glucose in turn will become fat. We have talked about aerobic respiration, right? In summary, one molecule of glucose is going to yield how many molecule of ATP? 38. So it is 36. Let's not get into the confusion. So 38, right? Now we have to talk about anaerobic respiration, right? Anaerobic respiration, which is also otherwise referred as fermentation. It's also otherwise referred as fermentation, right? Gavani. Very pare glucose, right? Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, which something involved in glycolysis. Then 3-phosphoglycerate. Now, question get phosphoenol pyruvic acid, and you see a pyruvic acid here. So from here to here you see which one? Glycolysis. Pyruvic acid is there. There is no oxygen, so in that case it cannot enter into mitochondria. In cytoplasm, pyruvic acid can either become lactic acid or it can become ethanol. So pyruvic acid is how many carbon on pyruvic acid? 3 carbon. How many carbon? 2 carbon. So 1 carbon is CO2. Inga 3 carbon 3 of pyruvic acid, 3 of lactic acid is matched. Clear arka? இப்போ நீ பார்த்தன்னா கவனிச்சனா a pyruvic acid in an organism can either become lactic acid or either become methanol. Not that a single pyruvic acid can become both. No. So this is what is called as fermentation. So if it becomes lactic acid, then it is called as lactic fermentation. Okay, enna fermentation? Lactic fermentation, and this is called as alcoholic fermentation. So in the bakeries, breweries, you see only alcoholic fermentation. Whereas lactic acid, the curd of milk, curdling of milk, lactic acid. The microbes in human welfare chapter you would have read. Right. First let us take lactic acid fermentation. The enzyme is going to be lactate dehydrogenase. It is going to be alcohol dehydrogenase. Okay. In lactate dehydrogenase, pyruvic acid become lactic acid, you see NADH. So what is happening here? So pyruvic acid enna aagum? Pyruvic acid reduce avudha, oxidize avudha? Nalla paathu sol. What is happening to pyruvic acid? Whether it is accepting electron or is gaining electron? Very good. Gaining electron. Who is giving electron? NADH. NADH gives the electron to pyruvic acid, so pyruvic acid is reduced to lactic acid. Reduced. NADH is oxidized to NAD+. Clear irka na pesradhu? Ipo adhe nee inga vandana your pyruvic NADH is giving the electron, so pyruvic acid is oxidized to ethanol, so pyruvic acid is reduced to ethanol, NADH oxidized to NAD+. That's point. Right? This is what. And this is a reversible reaction, and whenever the oxygen thing favors, lactic acid again become pyruvic acid enters into the mitochondria, aerobic respiration will continue, right? This is the other case. Now, enna inga NADH varudilla, the NADH from where it is coming na, this NADH which is produced in glycolysis is being brought here. Actually this NADH has to go to mitochondria to fetch 3 ATP. In absence of oxygen, mitochondria is locked. Okay. Now this NADH will come here. Okay. Donates electron back. So this is the case. What is the number of ATP produced in anaerobic respiration? Aerobic respiration, we have done the calculation, is 38. What is the number of ATP produced in anaerobic respiration? Number of ATP in anaerobic respiration. Glycolysis level over glycolysis connect podu glycolysis SLP level over in that SLP level over SLPல 8 எப்படிப்பா வரும்? SLPல எவ்வளோ வரும் சொல்லு. You can refer the book and say how many in SLP? 4. 4, right? This is SLP. How many in oxidative phosphorylation? How many NADH is produced? 2 and 2 G3P dehydrogenase reaction, right? இப்போ இந்த 2 NADH it will generate how many ATP? 6 ATP. எப்போ அப்படின்னா once this NADH reaches mitochondria. Now that is not happening. Why? Because there is no oxygen. Mitochondria is locked. You are getting my point. அப்போ இந்த NADH அதனால தான் NADH இங்க வருது. அப்போ இந்த NADH see this what has been written here is the glycolysis. புரியுதா உனக்கு அது? glycolysis கொஞ்சம் ஷார்ட் ஃபார்ம்ல கொடுத்திருக்கான். Instead of the entire thing அங்க ஸ்கிப் பண்ணிட்டு they have given a general outline. அப்போ இந்த NADH, right, in the NADH, okay, it cannot reach mitochondria. புரியுதா? It cannot reach mitochondria. அப்போ it has to it cannot give the 3 ATP. புரியுதா நான் சொல்றது? அப்போ you won't have this 6 ATP from oxidative phosphorylation. அப்போ மொத்தமே எவ்வளவு வருது இங்க? 4. நான் சொல்றது புரியுதாப்பா? NADH ல இருந்து வரக்கூடிய ATP இங்க வர்க் ஆகாது. ஏன்னா அந்த NADH மைட்டோகாண்ட்ரியாக்கு போகணும். மைட்டோகாண்ட்ரியா is locked, so NADH will come here. இந்த NADH தான் இங்க வருது. இல்லனா they should have gone to mitochondria and giving ATP, right? Now you have 4 ATP through substrate level phosphorylation and 2 ATP is used, so net is going to be only 2 ATP through anaerobic respiration. புரியுதா? It is going to be only 2 ATP through anaerobic respiration. அப்ப which is efficient, aerobic or anaerobic? How many ATP? How much time is aerobic efficient than anaerobic? அங்க எவ்வளவு வருது? எங்க 8 வருது? glycolysis பைல. அப்ப glycolysis மட்டும் aerobic respiration 38. இங்க எவ்வளவு வருது? அப்ப how many times is aerobic efficient than anaerobic? அங்க 38. அதே ஒரு குளுக்கோஸ் இங்க 2 கொடுக்குது. அப்ப 18 times. நான் சொல்றது புரியுதா? 18 times, right? Okay. இவ்வளவுதான் பாயிண்ட், ரைட்? இதெல்லாம் கொஞ்சம் பார்த்துக்கோ. Okay. Then see, respiration is called as an amphibolic pathway. Amphibolic na it is both anabolic as well as catabolic. Anabolic plus catabolic. What is anabolic? Anabolic is a kind of metabolic reaction where smaller molecule will form a larger molecule. Say starch, glucose becoming starch. Anabolic or catabolic? Anabolic. Starch becoming glucose, catabolic. ஏன்னா பெரிய starch is getting broken down to small. So அவன் என்ன சொல்றான்? He has given some justification saying that respiration is neither an anabolic pathway nor a catabolic pathway. It's a combination of both, which is nothing but an amphibolic pathway அப்படின்னு சொல்றான், right? You could see. Okay. இப்போ இந்த கொடுத்திருக்கு பாரு. Because respiratory pathways involve both anabolism and catabolism, hence would be better to consider respiratory pathway as the amphibolic pathway rather than as a catabolic alone. Respiration na food is broken down to energy, so broken down on is catabolic nu solla kodadu, since here you see the both okay, so adukku da inda or paragraph da he has given this particular flow chart here. Listen, now as I said, anike sonna food need not be carbohydrate alone. It can be protein, it can be fat, whichever. When you are hungry, whichever food you eat, you are going to get energy. Appa we have taken mostly as carbohydrate. That's first, we have talked here. Simple sugar, there is glucose. So glucose 6-phosphate, fructose 1,6-phosphate, 3 the pyruvic acid, acetyl-CoA, Krebs cycle, CO2, water. Water enga form electron transport chain, final reaction. CO2, then and there it getting released. So this is the carbohydrate thing which we have seen in detail, right? Now, ஒரு வேளை fat இருந்ததுன்னு வெச்சுப்போமே, when you consume fat, அப்ப என்ன ஆகும்? You have fat is made up of fatty acid and glycerol. This fatty acid by some reaction called as beta oxidation of fatty acid னு பேர். What is it called as? Beta oxidation of fatty acid. Gavani, fatty acid will become acetyl-CoA. Once it becomes glucose breakdown become acetyl-CoA through pyruvic acid. Likewise, fatty acid breakdown also gives acetyl-CoA. From here, the Krebs cycle will begin. சொல்றது புரியுதா? ஆமா இருக்கு புரியுதா? அப்போ you can note that the acetyl-CoA is going to be the common meeting point for both carbohydrate and fats metabolism. The ரெண்டு இங்க தான் மீட் ஆகி அப்புறம் Krebs cycle is going to be common. புரியுதா? இதுல இன்னொரு பாயிண்ட்டும் இருக்கு. Glucose aerobically oxidized, okay, will give you 38 ATP. இப்போ fatty acid ங்கிறது say 16 கார்பன் இருக்குன்னு, which is we have got a fatty acid called as palmitic acid which is of 16 carbon. அப்போ கவனி, once it undergoes a beta oxidation of fatty acid, from 16 carbon one acetyl-CoA is formed. So remaining, the 16 carbon will be, remaining carbon will be how much? From one fatty acid, if it undergo one round of beta oxidation, it gives rise to an acetyl-CoA. What is the number of carbon of acetyl-CoA? அப்போ remaining இங்கேருந்து ரெண்டு பிரியுது acetyl-CoA ஆடுது. remaining என்ன இருக்கணும் அங்கே? 14. அப்போ அடுத்த 14 carbon again it will go another round of beta oxidation. It becomes 12. அப்போ how many Krebs cycle will operate from one fatty acid? எத்தனை acetyl-CoA வரும் 16 கார்பன்லேருந்து? 8. அப்போ 8 round of Krebs cycle, 8 into 12. ஏன்னா 1 Krebs cycle yields 12 ATP. அது தவிர இங்கே சில ATPs தான் ப்ரொடியூஸ் ஆகும். அப்போ கிட்டத்தட்ட depending upon the case, the number of ATP from one fat might go to 150-200 ATP. அதுலேயே டபுள் பாண்ட் சிங்கிள் பாண்ட் calculationல நான் சொல்றது புரியுதா? But the take home message here is, compared to carbohydrate, fats are high energy yielders. ஒரு ஃபேட்லேயே 3 ஃபேட்டி ஆசிட் இருக்கும். அந்த 3 ஃபேட்டி ஆசிட்ல நம்ம ஒன்று தான் பார்க்குறோம் இப்போ. அது 16 carbon is minimum. It can go to 20 amino acid, 20 carbon arachidonic acid. அப்போ 20னா 10 தடவை வரும் இங்கே acetyl-CoA. புரியுதா? 10 Krebs cycle. சொல்றது புரியுதா? கிளியரா இருக்கா? This is the case, right? So this is the point you have to note, and both will meet at acetyl-CoA. புரியுதா? Right? அதுக்கப்புறம் here also protein will get broken down to amino acid. Amino acid somehow become pyruvic acid, and from where the Krebs cycle will happen. Okay, in case if the glucose is less, fatty acid is more அப்படின்னா, the reverse of this process also can happen. அப்போ glucose to pyruvic acid, anabolism catabolism? Catabolism. 6 carbon to 3 carbon. Sometimes the reverse also can happen. So it is anabolism. So respiration is something like, it is mix of both anabolism and catabolism. So அது மீன் பண்றதுக்கு தான் இது. Okay, the same thing would have been given in the paragraph. அதனால தான் people say, if one want, see some people they have a wrong idea that they want to lose weight, they avoid glucose, they start consuming fat, or they avoid fat, they start consuming glucose அப்படின்னா, glucose in turn will become fat. இப்படி வந்துரும். புரியுதா நான் சொல்றது? So breakdown of fat is catabolism, formation of fat is anabolism. So respiration is mix of both anabolism and catabolism, right? So in the point, அதுக்கப்புறம் last thing is you have got something called as respiratory quotient. It's very simple, okay? So you should know this formula. RQ is equal to volume of CO2 evolved, volume of O2 consumed. Actually that's got a very in-depth meaning, but you know our part is, you know, will contain with this equation. So இது தெரிஞ்சிருக்கணும், right? அதுக்கப்புறம் RQங்கிறது in case if the food is going to be carbohydrate அப்படின்னா RQ is equal to 1. இதை கொடுத்துருக்கு பாருங்க. Carbohydrates are used as substrate. The RQ will be 1, right? And if the carbohydrate is going to be fat, it is going to be 0.7. Okay, tripalmitin is a fat. So either they can say it as a fat or tripalmitin. It's an example, like you say glucose is going to be example of carbohydrate, tripalmitin is going to be example of fat. Protein is going to be 0.9. And you also have one more thing which is not given here. If the respiratory substrate is something like organic acid, it is going to be organic acid. It is going to be greater than 1.0, like 1.3, 1.4 அப்படி இருக்கும். It is going to be organic acid. புரியுதா? இவ்வளவுதான் chapter, right? So for you to get the command in this chapter, you need to understand the equation, memorize it, see where the NADH is formed, FADH2 form, and calculate ADP accordingly, and see how the electron transport system operates, what are the complexes involved, in turn what are the molecules present in the complexes, and finally RQ, and what major difference you see between the anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. Adhabadi why respiration is a amphibolic pathway. So yeah, அந்த மாதிரி பார்த்தா this chapter mainly when you have an equation command, glycolysis, when you're able to say glycolysis Krebs cycle without seeing book, okay, right from your memory, then you will get the command in this chapter. Otherwise this even simple question in this chapter will be threatening. புரியுதா?